On August 10, 2015, as Google pioneers, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, reported that they would pull back from Google's everyday tasks. At the time it seemed like the two were essentially venturing back to zero and on philanthropy, compassionate issues and different organizations, the normal tech extremely rich person, aire stuff. Yet since they ventured down as Larry Page and 2 times as famous Sergey Brin as per Google drifts, so what ended up researching's originators, and where are they today? What ended up finding out about Google pioneers? Well, getting going with tack. A glance at Sergey Brin and Larry Page's hotory at Google will see that they never really pursued the spotlight. Going back to 1998 to 1999, Larry Page was initially that president of Google when the organization was begun. However, obviously, plainly neither Larry Page nor Sergey Brin were especially extraordinary leaders in 2001. For case Larry needed to shoot all the undertaking supervisors at Google. He believed that specialists ought to be passed on through gadgets to create the best outcomes. What's more, that tension from the board simply smothered their work. So he thought that eliminating the executives through and through was smart. While that could work in an ideal world, this was clearly not sensible choice, particularly for a startup, which should have been precise, exact and send a red a forgetting parcel of reaction for this thought. However, Larry comprehended his deficiency when it came to maintaining a business, and gave up his situation on as chief. It was same insane falling out like we so frequently see. However, Larry didn't leave the organization like Steve Occupations or Jack Dorsey. Larry didn't leave the Mary really became. Recall why great friends with the now president Eric Schmidt and Elle would try and contend that Larry as player companions with Eric Dodney, then his prime supporter, Sergey. Larry served as president for an entire 10 years until he personally ventured back, expressing that everyday adult management is not generally required. Larry would become chief ONEC again in 2011, as not long as he would step back in 2015. The explanation raise the story is to showcase that during Larry and Sergey dynamic involvement with Google, Larry was chief for not exactly a fraction of the time, and Sergey was never president. His is distinct difference to Bossy Cali, each and every other organization, pioneer who loves to have greatest control, and be at the middle consideration, given that they established the organization. I don't fault them, yet his was plainly not the situation with Google. Organizers, they never pursued the spotlight while they were at Google, so it's a good idea that they didn't pursue the spotlight after subsequent to leaving Google's, either aside from being content with working behind the scenes. Both Sergey Brin and Larry Page very confidential individuals. Neither of them truly have any virtual entertainment presence. They don't have openly known Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube records. Sergey Brin even recommended that him chipping away at Google, in addition to was presumably stretch way farther than just keeping away from online entertainment. For example, we don't even realize who Larry's children are. We realize he had a child in 2009, yet we don't have a clue about his name, and we never at any point seen an image of him. In 2011, Larry uncovered that he had one more of his kid. It's really very amazing that Larry has had the option to conceal this data from the press for such a long time. Simultaneously, however, I'll bet a ton of you all think that this is stops unexpected, given that Google is scandalous for invading client security. Yet truly I don't think Larry nor Sergey wanted Google to head down the path in any case, and that gets me to my next point, which is that the two failed to keep a grip on Google. This is nothing now inside the business world. As organizations develop, increasingly large investors and investors have a more huge say in store for the organization. Normally the premiums of the investors and chiefs are adjusted. However, generally the essential goal, leaders and investors, is to just become the organization's wreck, however much as could reasonably be expected, and boost benefit/investor esteem. This is something very similar with Google. Sharp pioneers, yet issue is that isn't exactly the pioneers' objective. During the 2000s, Larry and Sergey adapted to the investors' wishes, as they concurred that laying out monetary dependability was a main concern anyway, as Google turned into a ruled player and began pulling in enormous benefits. Many years, Larry and Sergey needed to zero in on something more significant. They needed to zero in on trial and error examination. and development instead of 2013. Larry would uncover his drawn-out V recommending Google, and this would make obviously Larry, and the investors disagreed at all. Larry needed to make something many refer to as research. Island, as the name proposes. Larry needed Google to work as though it was Unisland. This meant interests him not certain. How Larry anticipated that the public should respond. Perhaps, he felt, that way would uphold his objectives of zeroing on advancement over benefits, yet general society fundamentally chuckled at him. The press ran a few papers, proposing that this was just for the proof that extremely rich people were totally detached structure reality, and investors just discounted Google Island as some crazy geek fantasy. The way that the public mocked thought made it clear that neither Larry or Sergey truly had command over Google